Hi, everyone. I'm Renee Barnett, and this is What's Left.
When I said, hey, hey, what's wrong with you? I wanna take you back tonight just to see you smile. You don't gotta be there on Tuesday morning.
Hey, how are you? So glad that you could join us today. I'm here with my wonderful co host from across the pond, George White. And hi, George. How are you? We got Sean Halsell with us as well. Hey, Sean.
Hi, Renee. Hi, George. How you both doing?
How's the weather over there?
The summer's ended. We had that 20 minutes of summer in the UK. But
I was just checking out the news across the nation or across the world, and in France, I was looking at the sunflowers that are just dead in the fields, and it just, I mean, having been to France multiple times and seen those fields of sunflowers, I know I'm in France when I'm driving through the countryside and see all those beautiful sunflowers, and it was so disheartening to see. And I guess my only comment is, there are people out there that deny climate change.
absolutely, it's insane, isn't it? And talking about insane, what's going on in America at the moment, Renee?
Oh, not a thing. Nothing. We're just running smoothly over here, tooling along. Unfortunately, we have a former president under several indictments. And I forgot to put my phone on silent. So sorry. Anyway, so we can, and I can't reach it to turn it off. But anyway, I'll turn it off in just a moment when you take me off screen. But anyhow, we've got a president under indictment, or a former president under indictment, also running for president again, and seems to be perfectly legal for a convicted felon, if that's the way it turns out, which, honest to God, there's so many cases and there's such a plethora of evidence. I don't see how he won't be convicted on certainly at least one felony, if not multiples. So, but I guess it's perfectly legal for someone to serve in public office, including the presidency, from their prison cell. I don't think that'll happen. I really don't think that'll happen.
It's really interesting as well with how many people who've been convicted of a crime who can't vote, have had the vote taken away from them, yet it's perfectly legitimate to stand for office.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny because, of course, the whole January 6th thing, and the attack on the Capitol, and all this rhetoric out there has been, the election was stolen. But there have been audits on every contested election, not only by those states themselves, but even by Trump's people, and no one's been able to find anything. The only fraud that they're finding is from Trump voters. There was a Trump official that yesterday was indicted or convicted, I guess, of voter fraud, where he had said he was living in one county, he was living in another, and he voted in both. And also, and he was a campaign official screaming voter fraud, and he was committing it himself. But that's just one person. So there was overwhelmingly little fraud. There's always going to be a little bit. Somebody, is going to mail their dead grandfather's voting ballot in or whatever. But it's amazing that he does still maintain any support, from where I sit. But, I'm way on the other side of the court here. So
as well, from an outsider looking in, the elephant in the room is almost every one of your elections has been stolen. It's not by either party; it's by big corporations who pump money into your system and take that away from the people. It's
honestly, I really think you've hit on something there, because of course there are campaign contribution laws and things like that, but there are so many ways around those. An individual cannot contribute more than $2,500 to a campaign, but there are ways they can get it through PACs and things like that. It's just ridiculous. Honestly, I don't think it should be about money at all. I don't know if we should.
Very quickly.
Well, there he goes. It was. I don't know. It's very confusing on this end. And I can only imagine what it must be watching us from afar. It must look insane over here, but I don't know. I think it's getting better. I think it's getting better. Certainly, these DAs and special prosecutors are doing their jobs, and they are. Everyone was complaining about how long it was taking, but if it meant dotting every I and crossing every T, I say take as long as you need, just get it over with before the election. And so that's what they've done, really. So we've got trials coming up. I mean, Trump's trial calendar looks crazy for next year. He's got trials one after the other. And now, let me just ask you this. Now, I know, there is such a thing as, sociopaths and psychopaths who don't experience the same emotions or the same level of emotions or the same range of emotions that most people do. And I know that even, like in the face of trouble and turmoil, they seem to handle it a little bit better than most people, because they just don't. They think, I'm going to be fine. I'm the best. I'm going to win. But surely all these cases that are coming down, and with people apparently, flipping on him, as we call it here in the United States. I don't know if that's a common term everywhere, but there are people now that are retaining their own attorneys, and they're going to testify against Donald Trump. So you would think, especially, he's not a young guy. He's not a healthy guy at all. He eats terribly. He's overweight, even though he put his height and weight down is 6'4", 215 when they checked him into the Fulton County Jail. He's just so ridiculous that he's got to be almost 100 pounds more than that. Like, who cares? But he just wants to bash everybody else's weight, like Governor Chris Christie. So he has to feel like he's the perfect specimen, I guess. But yeah, so he was indicted, and there was a question: how will he be treated? Will he be treated, with kid gloves? Will he have to do a mugshot? Because previously, in all the other cases where he's been indicted, where he's been arrested, they have not taken his mugshot with the reasoning that, oh, there it is. Oh my gosh. Now, okay, that is a hideous picture, and it looks scary and mean and crazy. But yet, the Republicans are all saying, oh, he looks strong, he looks tough, he looks hard. And then, immediately they put it on a T-shirt that he made an infomercial on the same day about the T-shirt. And the T-shirt is the mugshot with a banner across saying "Never Surrender." Ironically, it was on a picture of him when he was actually surrendering to law enforcement. So it's like everything is fake. Everything is something different. Everything is the opposite. We're living in opposite world.
But just to flip that around, Renee, do you not think this could be exactly what he wants to get his supporters riled up? And with all these court cases, you're not going to see him out of the press, and he's not going to not have a microphone in front of him for months and months.
That's exactly.
And that's the problem of turning your politics into a circus and all that stuff, and allowing that to happen originally has led to this stage now where it's become so divided, and it's not just political differences which we debate on anymore. It's got the real chance that violence will spill into it again after what we saw at Capitol.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with most Republican and conservative policy, or maybe not most, but there's a lot, that I don't agree with. However, I really would prefer, because of the system that we have in place, the two-party system, basically, I would prefer a healthy opposition because, I mean, this is just draining for the country. People are, remember, Sean, on one of our initial shows, we had Dr. Bandy Lee on, who had written the book and talks about Trump derangement contagion and how, fascism is a mental illness. And I think that was a bombshell for us. James Martin was with us, and I know that hit him. It's like a whole different way to look at it.
Yeah.
It's like, the folie à deux, but folie à everybody, It's like group psychosis.
Absolutely. So what are your thoughts on what's going on in the States, George?
Well, when the storming of the Capitol seemed at the time, it seemed unbelievable, didn't it? And then when you look back into sort of the age of dictators in Europe and the rhetoric that has been used before and since, and the idea that everybody was watching agog at, for example, Mussolini marching on Rome in a democratic country, it does seem like that can never happen here. That can never, I think most people will have been thinking that can never happen in the United States. Democracy is so well embedded, nobody would stand for it. But it came within an uncomfortable margin, probably not. It wasn't on a knife edge, perhaps, but it came within an uncomfortable margin. There was a period of, I'm not sure how long it was, but there was a period of time where the government of the United States, the buildings that govern the United States, were occupied by rioters. It's something that you shouldn't be able to report upon, isn't it?
It was like the Twilight Zone. I mean, it was like, what? It was surreal. And I remember that day, you couldn't stop watching, eyes glued to the TV, and you're wondering, where are the reinforcements? Where is the protection? And when you know now what you know about, the planning, I mean, we've heard phone calls, we've read text messages. So we know that this was not unexpected. And how, the president of the United States not only engineered it, but then allowed it to do what it did. And for hours. And I just remember that it seemed like it was just days, because you kept thinking, how is this going to stop? And it was it was appalling. It was appalling. And, you know, the way they would, this is the people's house. Well, yeah, but it's all the people's house, not just a small faction of the people's house. But anyway, and in this whole murderous thing that the Republicans, or I wouldn't say Republicans, I would say the MAGA Republicans have going, you know, about, you know, thinking they should kill Democrats. I mean, it's insane. It's really insane. I don't know where, you know, how that's going to get completely tamped down. I do think, honestly, in my heart of hearts, secretly, I do hope Trump is the nominee, because I don't think there's any way he can win. I think people are too tired and too scared, and he certainly lost any of the independent votes that he garnered first time around.
Do you not think there's a danger there, though, that you give him a platform again, and the election sort of doesn't even matter, that January the 6th ends up becoming sort of like a trial run for what could happen in the future?
Well, I'm sure in his mind it was. I'm sure he would do something even more evil. I just don't think he could make it. But this is what I've been thinking the last couple of days. Okay, I don't know who it would be if he does get disallowed from the ballots. I don't know who is going to be the one that would be stepping into it. You know, I don't think anymore that it would be Ron DeSantis, because he's just done nothing but go down, 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 down. People are sick of him too, and his anti-woke stuff, when he can't even explain what he means. And he's got zero personality, and unfortunately, that's important in a campaign. You know, to get voters, you want voters to relate to you, and I don't know how in the world anybody ever related to Donald Trump, but he had something that a certain part of our population related to, and I have to say, it probably was anger and racism.
And ego as well, I think that sense of entitlement and ego that comes from having that wealth and never having to sort of go for any sort of struggle in your life. I think that ego and sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
Well, and America's very, very strange from the outside again looking in. And I don't for a moment believe every American's like this, but the culture seems to be geared towards let's accumulate as much stuff as we can. And
it is. I mean, that's sort of how we're programmed, you know, and I mean, I was too. I remember, you know, I planned on, you know, driving a Rolls Royce and being someone famous and doing this and doing that. So I could have big house and everything. And the older I got, the more mature I got, those things just don't matter. You know, I'd like a good car that can get me from A to B and maybe doesn't look like a complete trash heap. But other than that, I don't care. You know, I wouldn't even want a huge house, you know, with 36 rooms, because honestly, I would feel like crap in there, knowing that there were people that didn't have a roof over their heads. You know, why do we need more than we need? You know, just because I have a lot of money, why does that mean I need 50 rooms in my house?
Well, I mean, for me, it's because you've spent your whole life being told that's how you demonstrate your value to society, and
it is.
Probably that's a sort of neoliberalism with the Chicago boys and all that, and how America decided to bounce back from the post-war slump was consume as much as possible rather than let's rebuild communities. It's sad.
Yeah.
I wonder with Donald Trump though as well, because up until this point, from the bits that I've read, his experience of the legal system has been something along these lines. You end up in court, or on the way to court. You hire yourself a big fancy lawyer. You threaten the other side that if they lose, they're going to have to pay for your fancy lawyer, and then you offer them a settlement somewhere, with some strings attached that say, if you accept this settlement, you've accepted that you can't take me through the courts again. And that's been his experience. Money's always bought his way out of trouble, even when he's been banged to rights, even when he's been potentially, cheating on property deals, or I think sexual harassment and various things that have been accused of. And he's always, every time, been able to buy his way out of the legal system by doing this. And this is possibly the first time where he's not in that position, because it's not somebody versus Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump versus the state, isn't it?
The United States of America versus Donald Trump. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, to me, it's astounding. But I do see a tiny pinhole light at the end of the tunnel. I believe his influence is waning. It's waning in the media, even though he's still on there way too much. His support is waning. People are beginning, even a few Republicans are now beginning to speak out against him. Now we've got this uncertainty with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who's having a health issue twice in the last week or so. He's been speaking on camera and just absolutely froze and had to be led away. So I'm not sure what that portends for his leadership position. I don't think he'll resign as a senator, but there's definitely talk about him stepping down as leader. And I don't know who it would be that was going to step into that position, but hopefully it's not someone even worse, which is possible.
Yeah, we have a very similar problem in this country, where we got rid of one Tory and sort of another worse
Another
one
two pop up in its place.
Yeah, the right wing are very much akin to hydras, aren't they? You cut one head off and two more arsonist ones appear in the place. But you were talking before we started, Renee, about some of the state governors looking at taking Trump off the ballot. Talk us through what that looks like.
Yeah, well, there is an article in the Constitution of the United States, Article 14, Section 25, and I can't quote it, but what I can tell you is basically paraphrase what it says, is that anyone who participates in an insurrection against the United States government or gives aid and comfort to insurrectionists against the government is prohibited from holding future office. And it is, from what I understand, what's called, self-executing terms, in that it doesn't need to go before a court or anything. It can just be implemented. So what's happening is governors of various states are looking into taking Donald Trump off the ballot in their states. And one has already filed. I think there's one coming right behind them. And as I was saying off the air, I can't imagine that California wouldn't want to do that. We do have a pretty strong Republican contingent down in Orange County, but obviously the state is largely blue. And I would love to see his name taken down. Although there's a little part of me that wants to have his name on there and just see him beaten, within an inch of his life at the polls. But so it's hard to say, And interestingly, the governor and oh my goodness, I wish I had looked it up just before his trial. I think it was the governor of Wisconsin. Whatever governor it was that has started that process is a Republican governor, which I think is very good. I think it should not have been a Democrat to do it first.
Yeah.
Because then it would just be it's a Democrat thing and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. It causes more division, doesn't it? And it makes it look like it's just political tit for tat. And
And now they, the real danger, or the most imminent danger, I think, is the Fulton County, Georgia case against Donald Trump and 18 co-indictees. There may be fewer now because I think some are flipping, but it's a mandatory prison sentence if he's convicted on these charges. And so what he's done is, Republicans who accuse the other side of weaponizing the Justice Department have called for an investigation into Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and want to start procedures to remove her. And the governor of Georgia just came out, I believe it was this morning, and said that's not going to happen. And he's a Republican. Of course, Fani Willis, we don't know what her voting record is, but certainly she's backed by Democrats. But he said, this is not, how we're going to do things. We're going to follow the law, whether it helps our party or hurts our party, whatever it is, we're going to follow the law. And so I don't think they're getting anywhere with that investigation. I mean, it's so obvious. It's not a real investigation. They don't have any grounds for it. They're just throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. And so far, nothing has. What about, your government in the UK? I know that, Trump had a fairly decent relationship with former Prime Minister Bari, but I don't know what Richie thinks about him, and I don't know what people. I would think most people in the UK probably see right through him. But I don't know. I've heard some people on the radio, on podcasts in the UK.
I think there's quite a bit, because whether you'd followed who Nigel Farage is, Renee, but Nigel Farage has been this recurring nightmare for.
He's a good buddy of Trump
for most of my adult life. That keeps saying my political work here is done, and then popping up another time on something else. But he spent his a spell of time over in the United States courting Trump and the Trump supporters, and I do believe that's those elements are closely entwined, and that those sorts of populist tactics have been cross-pollinating. Brexit, Trump, those things, the things that got both of those, elected and happening.
Mm-hmm.
We're coming out of the same place. We're coming from the big money into politics. They were coming from the appeal to this populist thing. Look for a bogeyman to blame it all on.
Yes.
So I think they're all in the same playbook. Whether or not a prime minister would ever snub a president of the United States, I'm not sure about, because it hasn't happened so far, and that included, the Trump presidency.
Yeah.
So
I
I'd leave that one open.
I'll never forget. I will forget exactly what the situation was, but I know you guys will probably remember this when, people were caught. I think it was Justin Trudeau, Macron. I don't know if it was somebody from the UK, but they were caught in a private conversation laughing at Trump. And it was the same summit where, they were walking and they're going to take a group photo, and Trump just went and shoved the president of Montenegro, wasn't it Montenegro, out of the way. And it was just like, oh my God. I don't see, I can see him doing those things and not realizing how normal people would view that. But what I don't understand are the people viewing it and just not saying, he's just not fit. He has no spirit of decorum about him. He doesn't care about people. These people that are his biggest fanatical followers, he said he called them dirty and ugly and smelly. And he honest to God, he would not walk across the street to pee on them if they were on fire.
But it's that age old.
Spend a moment with those people.
It's the age old thing, though, isn't it? It's just how populists operate. They align themselves with a group of people, and then allow people to mock them. And then those people listening hear people mocking their guy and feel like they're mocking them. And that's where this division comes in, where rather than having reasonable debates, it all comes down to personality and the sort of chaos of, well, if you're saying that about Trump, you're saying he's an idiot, you mean I'm an idiot because I support him. And it sort of gets ingrained in base instinct stuff rather than thinking about what's in our interest. Like, maybe let's do some healthcare rather than just worry about saying nonsense.
Yeah. These are the people that need the healthcare. But yet they've been convinced that it's somehow bad to have free healthcare.
And that's where I think you fell down at the last time you chose someone pre-Biden with Hillary Clinton. I think Bernie Sanders could and probably would have beat him.
The way that you're saying where you found, I did not do that.
Not you, Renee. Not you. The country as a whole. But I think if you'd had a candidate like Bernie Sanders who was offering real change and something different, it wasn't status quo stuff. I think the problem is you need to. People are ready for change now, both in Europe and America. Yeah. Where we need a viable alternative. This system, capitalism as it has been operating for the last few decades, just is not working. It's destroying our environment. It's driving people into poverty and increasing that divide. The justice system is broken. I've just watched that Painkillers on Netflix, and it's just criminal where you step back and think this is what capital has done to healthcare, where it's created this massive problem. And it isn't a drug problem. It's a problem of capital where you monetize things and until it's harming people and no one can step back and challenge that. And I think we need viable alternatives on the table and at least give people a platform to talk about what change would look like. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. Do you think the world in general is sort of evolving toward more toward community? It feels like that, but honestly, I don't know if it's just wishful thinking on my part. But what could be so bad about looking out for your neighbor, or your brother, or supporting each other? I just don't get it. Instead of grabbing everything that you can for yourself, I think maybe it's just getting older and, having gone through a few tragedies, losing people, things like that. But certainly it's
more than apparent to me now at this stage of the game that the only thing that is important are other people. Not driving that huge car, living in a 50-room mansion. It's just those things fade away, and those things are not going to be important at all when you're lying there on your deathbed looking back at your life.
Well,
It's going to be people.
I would imagine that loving thy neighbour and sort of seeing to other people's needs is quite a Christian thing to believe in, and yet where most of the Trump support comes from seems to be from fundamental Christian, but far from in reality the practicalities of Christianity. But I also think that they're also the dupes in this, because I think I would imagine that those people are genuine in their beliefs. They genuinely believe, but I certainly don't believe that Trump is anything. I would think at best he would be something like agnostic, and you can see some of the sort of theatre play when he's holding the Bible and things. And there was one with the American flag where he was
hugging
on stage, and he was almost like French kissing the Stars and Stripes. And I was watching it thinking,
flag. He was humping the flag.
But I was watching it thinking, surely this doesn't go across. Surely nobody watches this and goes, "Oh, how genuinely this man's been overcome with emotion for his symbol of his nation," or whatever. It just seemed really absurd looking at it from an outsider, if you will.
Well, it seemed absurd to me too, but there are those that fell for it. He loves this country, No, he doesn't. His history is so bad. First thing we knew about him in the court system was, when he and his wicked old dad were discriminating against Black people renting in their apartment buildings. And they, that was true, that they were convicted of that.
There was the adverse as well, wasn't there, with the Central Park 5, where he was calling.
Yeah, just getting ready to say, the Central Park 5, these young guys were in the park, and a jogger was attacked and raped and beaten, and Trump took out a full-page ad in like the New York Times saying, basically hang them and all this stuff. And they were convicted and sent to prison for years. And then it was found that they did not do it. And they were all
kids as well, weren't they? They were all children.
They were kids. Yeah. And then one of them has just won a seat in state government where he is. And I was so glad to see that, especially after hearing him speak. I don't know how anyone could spend time wrongfully convicted of a crime like that, especially, when it was such obvious, racial discrimination and everything, and not be bitter. But this guy is not bitter. He's out there working for his community. It's kudos to him.
That's the interesting. National American politics it's not really interesting to me, because I think the states are too different to ever be cohesive. But when you get down to state politics, there's some really, really interesting and brilliant characters around.
Tennessee state politics is very interesting, where they kicked out what do they call them? The Tennessee Three or something. There was two very young Black congressmen and a white woman congressman who they were just trying to be heard about gun violence. And they even had parents of the children that were killed just down the road at the Covenant School there in Tennessee. They made those parents leave they would not allow them to have a picture of their child to hold up or anything like that. And then they made them leave, and they wouldn't allow these representatives to speak. So it became another big brouhaha. But all they're doing is calling attention to the way that they're trying to silence people and how they really are. I mean, and please don't get me started about the book banning in Florida and Ron DeSantis. And he's not going to be the nominee. He's too unlikable. He's got zero personality, and what personality he has is horrible. But he's just mean.
For me, I mean, that's as depressing as it will.
Black history out of the history book. Okay, can you imagine? I was thinking about this. Can you imagine? Let's say the whole country goes that way, and we just start, omitting. It's highly possible that in a very short period of time, people around the world are going to know more about American history than our own children growing up, which puts them at a severe disadvantage. I mean, if you just want to look at it that way, they're going to be uninformed.
I was just going to say, as depressing as it all feels at the moment, though, seeing them state congressmen in Tennessee and the congresswoman, that's the future of politics, and that's where we've got to draw hope from, seeing that these people are coming through and making it through, and despite all odds and all the money, ordinary people speaking for their communities are starting to get traction, and people listening to them. And I've seen the videos of that from Tennessee round in the northwest of the UK. So these people are the future, and these are the people we've got to look towards to sort of carry that flame and sort of return us back to some sort of normality where politicians speak for us instead of against us often.
We've got some, young people that are coming up. Some are already in United States Congress that are just sharp as they can be, and they're not afraid. They're not afraid to speak up. And I'm not saying they're militant or they just know their stuff, and they're not afraid to call people to task. They're not afraid to speak up on the floor of Congress. And it's just really heartening to see the talent, these smart young people. And most of them, to be fair, don't come from some kind of wealthy home. Most of them, come from working class families.
And I think that leads into them not having that fear, because they've grown up, especially of our generation, sort of 30s and below. We've not had anything to lose. We didn't manage to get mortgages and big houses when we were younger. We've got nothing to lose. What can they take away from us? So what have we got to fear from
turning
down companies throwing money at us? It is heartening.
Yeah.
Well, I seem to remember about AOC. She was being derided for having been. She was a waitress, I believe, and she was being derided as like, what's a waitress know about sort of politics?
Yeah.
Or whatever. And it seems this this sort of impossible golden point that you have to hit. If you're wealthy and you're educated, you're an elite, and you're preaching down to people. If you're too poor, it's just the politics of envy, and you're just jealous that you don't have all the wealth that we have. If you used to be a cocktail waitress, you were. What would you know? What would you know about serious things? It just seems that there's this impossible place where you have to be in order to be the perfect politician, and the answer basically is, so long as you're talking about the things that we don't want you to talk about, you'll never be in that golden place, will you? I
mean, and come on, we're talking about AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She is smart as a whip, And I'm not saying I totally agree with everything. I mean, I off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything I disagree with her on, but I'm not fully aware of her entire policy desires and plans. But no one can say that she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's super well informed, super smart, and very concise. It's like put her up against Lauren Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she will talk circles around them. And I don't know.
As well, just the life experience. I mean, they're called representatives for a reason. They're supposed to represent us. We shouldn't be looking to elites and people who own businesses and are in that revolving door between like Axon and Congress and Senate and our Parliament here. These big companies, they should represent us. They should understand struggle and where we've come from. How do you know what the answers to some of these problems are, or even what the problems are, if you've never experienced it yourself? It baffles me why as a class we constantly have to go looking outside of our own class for people to speak on our behalf.
Wouldn't it be good if it weren't just a group of septuagenarians deciding which one was going to be the president?
Yeah, but speaking of that, it's like it's getting a little bit weird. Of course, with Mitch McConnell and Senator Dianne Feinstein, being ill and everything. And I guess it was Nikki Haley, who's also, of course, running for the Republican candidacy for president, who said Congress was just a nursing home now, which I thought was very tacky. And I'm not sure if that's, because I'm getting closer to Mitch McConnell's age than actually I'm probably between Mitch and Nikki, but you know what I mean? It was kind of a tacky thing to say. But yet, I mean, those are concerns. Now, quickly, I want to say about the election and how people are saying, oh, Joe Biden, he's going to croak and he's not going to make it and all this, and he's too old. Okay, I could understand if he was too feeble to carry on his duties, if his mind wasn't, working properly. But this guy is getting stuff done. And again, I don't like everything about him. There would have been people I would have rather seen up there, but he is getting things done for the American people. He just implemented something yesterday that would keep employers from reprisals against people, trying to start unions. It's going to make it easier. Kind of a little thing, could have been a lot bigger, but at least he's moving in those directions. And don't mention the women's healthcare thing. I mean, because that's just ridiculous. Now the state rules over women's bodies, and people are dying as a result of it because they're having a difficult pregnancy, something's wrong, even an ectopic pregnancy, which can kill you. Doctors are afraid to abort that because even though that pregnancy would never, ever, ever be viable, doctors are afraid they'll get their license pulled or put in prison because they performed an abortion. So it's just really crazy, but it's all coming from the same direction.
I think what Biden did well was not pushing Bernie Sanders out and not sort of marginalizing him and bringing him in, and that has allowed that sort of left-wing trade unionist, like traditional left-wing voice in there. And he honestly, sort of embraced that and brought the Democrats together. It feels like, certainly from the outside.
I mean, to me, that shows that he's kind of smart because, that was a smart move to do that. He brought in more people under the tent.
I think that's certainly where Hillary failed.
Is this, okay, yes, he could die. We could all die. I mean, we never know when that's going to happen. And of course, if you're old, it's more likely that it's going to be sooner rather than later. But, he's not incompetent. He's doing good things for the country. And for me, just, thinking personally, I know a lot of people don't like Kamala Harris much. I kind of get that, I guess, but I do like her. I knew more about her because she was a Californian. So I think it's people don't know her very well, and they don't really put her out there. I think they need to start doing that more, because if she ever should have to take over the reins, people say, "Oh my God, we're going to end up with her." It's not going to be any different. She's going to implement the same policies that Joe Biden started. She's going to carry on and do that. Now, whether she could get reelected, that's my worry, is that, okay, we've got an incumbent president, although one that, got in there because of the death of the president, and now it'd be weird if we didn't run her as the candidate, but yet I don't think, she would be the strongest candidate. Although if she's has a chance to show her stuff, I mean, maybe public opinion will change about her. I don't know.
I'm still holding the flame for Bernie.
Oh, I hope, I'm worried he's going to get swept up in this ageism thing that's going on right now in Congress.
Bernie speaks like ordinary people. I think he gets away. But when you listen to him, you kind of forget he is older, just because he speaks normal language and is probably one of the best communicators I've heard in politics at getting ideas across very simply. And I enjoy listening to him a lot. He's very, very good at communicating these ideas that often get maligned and stuff. And you see his career. He's a fighter, and he doesn't give up, does he?
No. He like your lovable, grumpy old uncle, who's always doing the right thing, and you go up and give him a big warm hug, and that's what he reminds me of. He's so geared toward, the common good. And yes, I definitely would have voted for him.
Yeah, that's it. Whenever you hear him speak, it's all about we. It's not I. It's we and us, rather than just looking at it from the individualistic thing, which I think is something that we desperately need back in politics. Thinking of us as a community again, and whether that's global or nationally or just in our immediate areas, I think it's positive to hear that. And again, there are going to be a lot of young people in America being influenced by him now who will step up and start taking these seats, whether it's at state level, local level, or eventually national or federal level.
Is there an enduring link between sort of workers politics, trade unions, and the Democrat Party, or is it sort of ad hoc support?
Yeah, I don't think it's as strong as it once was, and I don't think it's nearly as strong as it should be. Unions just aren't as strong here. But although I'm seeing changes being made in those areas, I'm hoping, for the best, because things are happening. There's a lot of good organization going on now. And anyhow, oh my goodness, we're getting close to the old end of the show.
We are. It's flown by again.
It really is. So I don't know if either one of you guys had anything in particular you wanted to bring up, either about U.S. I can take it. Go ahead. Hit me.
You got anything, George?
No, not off the top of my head.
No, to be honest, I think we've covered a lot there. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see whether there's a way to sort of reunify the country, or if it's divided beyond.
Yeah, I mean, it's families divided. It's down to that level. It's really tough. But I think there is some of that reunification going on. It takes people, like there was that one lady who was a big Trumper who was there on January 6th, got arrested, and she's completely flipped. And she's gone on a few shows talking about how they were all duped, and it's just ridiculous, and he's not going to do anything for the real people and all that. So it's taking people like that who are from that side of the aisle that that's what's going to make the difference. I mean, if it's somebody like me or another Democrat or liberal, they're not going to hear it because they're going to put the wall up immediately.
But presumably, similar to the Conservative Party in the UK, I presume the Republican Party are the party of law and order, the party that's tough on crime and etc., and will not see the irony of perhaps having a convicted, perhaps even time-serving prisoner president. Does it not seem odd that those ideals don't sort of marry up? Will the penny finally drop?
Yeah, we will see. Well, this has been all a lot for today. It's all been almost all USA, and some of it's not very easy to hear and easy to talk about. So how about a little palate cleanser? We had a supermoon this week. I wonder if anyone, isn't that gorgeous? The supermoon over Stonehenge. I ripped that from offline from someone. I hope we don't get in trouble for it, but it's absolutely gorgeous. So what's left? Well, what's left is we keep fighting. We keep caring about each other, and we keep taking care of each other. And I think, sounds silly and cliche, but live by example. And who can fault us for caring about each other?
That's excellent. Thanks, Renee.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
See you later.